connotate that there's going to be some sort of disaster, or does that mean that there's going to be some sort of remarkable event that you'll remember everything by?
No, a remarkable disaster.
Yeah.
A remarkable disaster? Okay.
In general, yeah.
Maybe it just depends on your frame of mind.
Yes. So on that note, welcome to the GVDS Showcase. This is number 4 of several that we're doing for the Global Virtual Design Sprint. The purpose of the showcase is to showcase the work that a particular team has done on their topic or their challenge. What you'll be experiencing if you've never seen one of these before is, if you're on YouTube or if you're here on Zoom, is we will be going through a mural that kind of tells the story from start to finish of what this particular team has done. Now, if you've been kind of reading into some of the descriptions that we've been getting into, this is about OtOh, which is I called it an intuitive news aggregator, but I wasn't sure if that was the proper description. But essentially, it's supposed to be on the other hand. It's a news sharing platform. It's meant to help people explore news from different perspectives with the aim to find common ground and decrease polarization. So that's what this team spent the last month primarily working on and collaborating on. We have 3 team members here that are basically representing the team. You are Team Awesome Alpacas, as you called yourselves. So I'll start with Minou and have her introduce herself, and then we'll just kind of go around. Minou, basically tell everyone who you are, what you're all about, and you know, what you're going to do this weekend. How about that? As like a very varied question that we could put in there.
Okay, of course. So Minou, from the Netherlands, currently based in Lisbon, and that actually answers directly what I'm going to do this weekend. It's work, because Lisbon is in a curfew. After 1, we're not allowed outside. So I had my weekend yesterday. I will have my weekend on Monday, and I will work this weekend. We have to be a bit creative. So I started a company called the Green Sprint in February together with another GVDSer. And we are focused on accelerating social sustainable innovations. And for that, we use design sprints and various other innovation processes and techniques. And that's why we entered the GVDS as well. So yeah, that's all about me. I think we can go over to Ken.
Thanks, Minou. I'm Ken Soto. I'm a designer, creative director for my own firm, Collab Interactive. And I help mostly higher education clients develop brand strategy and digital experiences. What I will do this weekend is what I do most weekends, which is mostly work, and then work on some projects around the house, because we have an old house, a fixer-upper that seems to be like a 30-year project. And we're only in year 20, so there's always something to do.
The perpetual fixer-upper.
That's right.
I see.
So now we'll hear from Marie.
Yes. Hello, so I'm Marie Grandus. I'm an experienced designer in France. I work on digital products for all kinds of companies, startups, big groups. And what I will do this weekend, I will certainly read and watch some conference inspiring people like Donald Norman or Karine Lallemand in France.
Very cool. So out of the 4 of us that are present on this call, there's one person that's actually going to be like doing leisurely activity over the weekend rather than primarily work, because I've kind of fit in that category as well, just by default. Although I will say that because I have an 8-year-old, I tend to have half of my weekend spent at the park, where the other half is kind of helping out at home and getting things done. So cool. Good to meet you all. I think we're going to start with Minou in terms of firing up a mural that we can all look at, and then kind of going through from start to finish what you guys have done.
Absolutely. So I will fire it up here. I'll share my screen now. This is the one you need. Here we go. So I will, yes, you're seeing the screen right now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you already introduced us a little bit. What we tried to solve over last month was the big idea of political polarization in the context of social media. Can probably be that this happened because we're all quite worried about the American elections, and this was always top of mind, so it could be that that nudged us in this direction. So we explored a couple of how might we's approaching this, tackling this big idea. The first one is how might we understand, how might we better understand the origins of the viewpoints for those that consume fake news? How might we help people validate where their information is coming from? And how might we get people to pay attention even to ideas that are far removed from their own? And we mostly went with the one, how might we help people explore differing views and validate where their information is coming from? As we explored this topic a little bit, and we noticed, of course, that a lot of people are quite vulnerable for fake news, and that something called either echo chambers or rabbit holes seems to be very present all over the world. We have people on the team from a couple of continents, and we all recognize this problem, and also that it is increasing. We focused as our audience on people with strong political views, and their pain was that they feel unable to properly explain their thoughts and where they come from. Often you can see it more and more as well. When you ask people where they get the news from or where the source is from, they either don't know, or it might be from Facebook, or there seems to be a lack of critical reasoning and exploring where you get your information from and if it's really true or is it biased. And the problem is that social media platforms are optimized to restrict exposure to different views. I mean, they want you to stay on their platform, of course, that's what they're designed for. They don't want you to go anywhere else. So they keep showing you information that they know that you will like and that they know that you will keep reading. And often this sort of puts you into a rabbit hole or an echo chamber where at some point you're only reading things that, sort of confirm what you're already believing. And to tackle this, we hopped onto a prototype, what you have been explaining at the beginning, OtOh, and Ken will tell a bit more about this.
Yeah, so in our conversations and exploration, we looked at a lot of different solutions. And as Minou said, we wanted to focus on those people who were probably most influenced by social media. And we didn't expect that we would be able to take on social media directly, although many of the solutions that we considered were specifically geared towards Facebook or Instagram or some other social media platforms. But we didn't want to take those on directly. Instead, we wanted to try to find or create a resource for people who were already in a silo, but could be persuaded. And how could they be persuaded? What might we create that would help them to see not just their own slanted news, but alongside something else? So we looked at a lot of different solutions. We considered something like Rotten Tomatoes or some other kind of trusted, widely distributed, aggregated review solution, a social media tracker that would allow people to not just see the source or a piece of social media, but see where it came from and backtrack it all the way to its origin, so they could better understand how that might influence them. Also, demographic data, being able to see what different news sources, how they were linking things together so that you could understand context better. And where we ended up and where we started to head towards was something that would allow people to see news, different, one story or many stories from different sources. So we would never prioritize one over the other. If we were going to show a piece of news, we had to show as many viewpoints around that same story as possible. And the other things that we wanted to make sure we were doing is it would be curated by people and people that you could connect with and also trust. And that the other thing that we wanted to make sure is that it would be transparent. So you would always be able to see how something had been rated. So to that end, we came up with a lot of different sketches. The one that was selected was what we called ontheotherhand.com, or as we like to call it internally, OtOh. So we then proceeded to storyboard and wireframe our prototype, which is kind of a website that shows one story from many different perspectives. And if you chose to view one, you always saw the other points of view on the same page. So if you clicked on this particular article, Dems delay again offered new objections, the other articles in that same vein, but from a different source, would always be on the same page. And then in addition to that, we tried to be as transparent as possible. How many people were viewing it, how long it would take, and then provide other tools so that people could see how everyone else was reacting to that same article. Was your mind changed? And how many people had seen it? How many people had shared it? How much time did people spend reading it? So that they could then understand how other people were reacting in real time to the same content and hopefully change their mind. But our ultimate goal was, can we get people to share? If they see something here, can we get them, motivate them to share an article with friends and just start to distribute this disintermediated content with their friends, so that they could kind of spread more understanding and not stay inside of their silo. So that was the basis of our user testing. Can we get them to hit that share button? Can they express a preference for this? And would they share things that they saw? So to that end, we began a user test with a few testers, and Marie will walk us through what we learned.
Okay. Where should I start? With positive statements, negative? What do you think?
Sure. Why don't you start with positive statements and then go counterclockwise so we can end up at our insights?
Okay. So the positive statement was for example, would you like to see this on the market? Yes, yes, yes. So people were motivated. I will know what sources are most unbiased, so it's useful. This concept can help the issue of polarization. I like the clean look of the website, and that's it. So on the negative statement, the survey area looks like an advertisement, so it's a bit confusing. Relationship of related articles is not clear, so this should be enhanced on the prototype. Go to homepage button is missing, okay, and purpose of this site is not clear. So little improvement that we can do on the prototype. Concerning the informational statement, I would like to pick the topics, so the user would like to pick them. Create a brand to make people feel good about being open-minded reading. Would prefer the survey area popping up after scrolling down a bit, and comment section is missing. And to end about the insights, people want the option to share only their perspective, not others. So this is quite a problem, I think. Well, it's not a problem, it's maybe an answer, an insight. And people would like to see an external fact checker included. The purpose of the site is not directly clear, so this is again, and people recognize the problem and seek a solution. Concerning invalidation, so to the question, did the prototype answer the sprint questions? We said yes. knowing the question was, would our users want to share articles they don't agree with? And the answer is, Minou, what do you think the answer is? Yes or no?
I was present at some of the user tests, and the answer was no at the beginning and yes at the end of the test.
Okay.
At the beginning, it was not completely clear yet what the prototype was, and they were still looking a little bit and exploring a little bit. And by the end, they really understood the three perspectives and what the point was, and they were all very willing to share three stories at once.
Great, thank you. So will the prototype properly address the long-term goal? We are not sure about that because actually we skipped this part of the long-term goal. And do you think we addressed the challenge we took on as a team? Yes, it answers how might we, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think everyone on the team participated and was involved pretty much all the way through. So, and I think what was also remarkable, and maybe this is getting to some of our own highlights and insights, it was kind of remarkable to me how quickly I think we all seemed to move in the same direction towards a solution. Not so much the specific solution, but understanding what problem we wanted to solve and why it was an important problem to solve. So there wasn't a lot of disagreement about that. We did a lot of exploration, but in the end, I thought, and I was gratified by how quickly we all seemed to agree on what problem was the most pressing to solve, and also the most challenging and the most interesting as a group. So for me, that was one of the more satisfying aspects of this particular challenge. How do the two of you feel about that?
Minou, do you want to start?
Yeah, absolutely. No, true. I think we all had a very deep understanding and a very personal understanding of the problem at hand. I think everyone understood what we tried to tackle, and also personally felt that this was really an issue. And once we moved in the direction of the prototype, I mean, it really was more about the details and what can we test within this time frame, what is feasible. But the overall prototype and the overall direction of like what we should go into was really clear really fast, and then everyone just went for it, which was absolutely great. Yeah, this was very valuable for me as well. And I think I learned, for me, what personally was a highlight is that I've never worked with InVision before, and now I could sort of follow how this process goes and how much you can build in quite a short time and really already explain a concept to users, and they were able to interact with it. And actually the user tests went almost over the 45 minutes because there was so much to interact with and so much to see and explore. It was very interesting for me to see exactly how that works within InVision prototype.
What about you, Marie?
Oh yes, it was an original experience to live this remotely. I really loved the template. It's a very good inspiration for me. Robert, you did a very great work on that. And concerning, yes, the topic, in France, actually, well, I don't know. Maybe we are not so much concerned about this topic. That is why I wasn't so much excited about this, but it's okay. I wanted to see the results, and it was very interesting to see how the team organize herself and do all the things. Yes, very interesting for me.
Yeah, and I'm just going to note on the remote aspect, just how Marie would sometimes call in from her car. And I was always on the edge of my seat, just like, don't crash, pay attention. But it always seemed to work out every time you had to call in from your car. And I really appreciated that.
Yes, I'm sorry for that. But I
No.
was listening to you very attentively, but looking at the road and the cars. Yes. Thank you for that, all the team.
Yep, I enjoyed it very much. So that represents our experience, Robert. I don't know if you have any questions for us.
For those the team members that aren't here right now, would you like to speak on their behalf in terms of their contributions to what you see here and what the kinds of things they did?
Mm-hmm. I'll jump in. One of the things I also liked about this particular challenge is we had a lot of diverse team members and backgrounds. A lot of people from UX, not a lot of designers, but a lot of people with research experience. And for that, I thought that was interesting, and it added a lot to the experience because we all had something different to bring. Austin is a developer, and for me, what was interesting about working with him is he's a pretty hardcore developer, but he has never actually, he said, experienced what the front end of a project like this looks like. By the time he gets his hands on it, something's been established and it's his job to code. So seeing the beginning of how something is ideated and then iterated and turned into a wireframe storyboard and ultimately a prototype for testing was completely new for him. So I thought that was very interesting. Finn, I think, has more experience with that end of it, but I think he got a lot out of it also. Sara, I think, is much more involved in UX and research, so this was pretty second nature for her, as well as for Marie and Minou. And Paula also was very experienced, but she was only able to stay with us like halfway through the project. But for those 2 or 3 sessions that she was with us, she was very, very involved and facilitated a couple of the sessions. So we just had, a lot of really good participation from our team members. You're muted.
Yeah, sorry. It was really interesting. I learned very specific things from very specific people, and that was actually outside of the time that we all spent together. So before I facilitated like the first, because on the Friday before the sprint, I never did GVDS before. It was my first time. So I was a little bit, no, not stressed out, but like nervous. So I had a very long call with Paula, and she completely guided me through it and helped me out. And we explored it together, and we explored the board together, and like what does facilitation mean? It was super helpful. And then when I went into user testing, I didn't do user testing via like online before either. Like I did that offline a lot, but not online. And she just let me be like a fly on the wall, so I could completely see what she was doing in the user test, and then after that try it out myself. So that was great. So I got to try out a lot of things that I didn't do before because people just took the time to explore it a little bit with me. Yeah, that made the experience definitely a lot more educational than I expected it to be.
It was suggested by someone else that I do monthly kind of introductions to the Global Virtual Design Sprint as an informed kind of session. So 60 minutes, 20 minutes of a presentation, a bit of Q&A, and then some exercises to kind of illustrate the kind of experience this is. Do you think for y'all that have joined us the first time, that sort of event would have been helpful outside of the networking that we had done prior to actually getting together?
Absolutely.
Yes.
I described this process a couple times for me as because I didn't really know what was coming in the process. I was trying to figure it out So it was kind of like I learned how to run whilst having a brick wall in front of me, which made it a little bit difficult sometimes. So yeah, I think this would definitely be helpful. On the other hand, trying it out this way does put you on edge and make me focus a lot more. So because I had to figure it out in that way, I don't know if maybe it even made my experience better and more educational. Couldn't say. I think I would have been more comfortable knowing more before, but it might have taken away a bit of my focus.
Did any of the existing help files that were put up on the website, the Virtual Design Sprint website, did any of those references help in your understanding of what was to come, or were those videos and articles kind of situational, meaning that you had to get into a certain part of the Virtual Design Sprint to understand it, and then go and reference the help files?
I think the help files for any other role were very helpful, but as facilitation and going through the boards, you really want it, or at least me, I really want the process in detail. I want to know exactly what happens when and how, what the goal is, what the purpose is, and where it will lead for tomorrow. It's just as with a recipe, like I want to know the end goal exactly, and when should be cooking, what should be cooking, how long. So that depends on like what role you have, I would say. I think for many roles, those help files were sufficient.
I do think, let me just jump in, Robert. Thinking about it, what you've described seems to me like it would be very helpful. I could easily imagine a 20 or 30-minute session of Robert walking people through a mural and the facilitation of that mural, and what to do at each point along the way would be really helpful. Having said that, anyone can watch any of the old YouTube videos that have been done and figure out exactly what's happening and what needs to be done at every point. But if you had put together a 20 or 30-minute tutorial walking through the whole thing from a facilitator's perspective, I think what Minou is talking about would be helped a lot.
One of the ideas I had, what I attempted to do this time was to embed instructional videos at certain steps of the process. So you had an overview at the very beginning, and then for each step inside the process, it would be just a demonstration of how to go about certain, how to do certain steps in the activities beyond the instructions that were there. Yeah. That did help to a certain extent on the dash side. But what I thought was, instead of spending a lot of hours doing post-processing and getting those ready, is to have what you're describing at the end of the week, an hour-long session on facilitation and design and other roles on how to approach the next week. So it would kind of be something that would be recorded and streamed so that people can watch it on their own time over the weekend to kind of prepare them for what's to come the next week, so that there isn't this kind of huge kind of like what Minou was describing, is that she's learning as she's going along. The running of the brick wall is interesting, because then I had a picture of Usain Bolt with basically basically pushing a wall at the same time trying to break a world record. So each day of the design sprint has its own kind of set of instructions. So it may be something that during design week at the end, it's getting some feedback on day one, and then having the other half of it being, okay, here's how day two looks, and here's how you kind of want to go about it. So there's feedback first part, and then the presentation, the second with Q&A, and do that at the end of, in my evening at least, at the end of a certain time, so that everyone knows that that's going to happen. And then you could just basically watch that on your own accord. Would that something like that be helpful?
I think so. For me, for sure, with me, maybe not. You can go into the details of the boards, for example, or details of the process. But for me, the most important thing to know is where should you be at the end of every day? Where should you be at the end of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday? Because then I know where I'll be working towards to. And I can also, as facilitator, you can play around a bit with various routes of how you can get there. Without knowing this, that makes it a bit difficult, and we only accepted, or at least in my dash team, it took us to go halfway through the week until we decided it doesn't really matter. We know where we want to get in the end. Let's just try different ways. But at the beginning, we were kind of really sticking to the process, and then it makes it that a bit difficult. So maybe not per se the details, but like, okay, Monday, at the end of Monday, you want to be somewhere here. And at the end of Tuesday, you want to know this or be able to go there. Yeah, sort of a roadmap.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That would be cool.
I want to circle back a little bit on the challenge that you all took on, because what you were attempting to do with your solution when I saw it was it basically re-engineers social media, in that what you describe is pretty true, that it plays to our biases. It kind of gives us puts us in echo chambers around our interests, but it's doing so to keep us on the platform. If you were to see this, what you've created, evolve over a 3 to 6 month time frame, and you saw an audience starting to build around it, how could you see this, I guess, evolving by that time? So 6 months from now would be April of 2021. Where would OtOh be in the zeitgeist of social media? How would it be categorized?
I think OtOh in the first place is not a social media platform, but a news outlet, which should be represented on social media, because we already realized at the beginning when we started exploring this, changing social media or tackling social media or the systems is just too big of a challenge. I mean, you cannot take down Facebook. You cannot change Facebook from within. What you can change is trying to create awareness and go more in the educational direction of how people perceive news. And for that, you need a news outlet, and news outlets can be big by being shared, or can grow big by being shared on social media platforms.
I'd agree with that. I think that was something that we talked about a lot early on, is we were not going to go after social media because it's just too powerful, and the incentives for people to be on social media are too great. Instead, what we wanted to create was as Minou said, a news source. And Robert, to answer your question, I would say in 3 to 6 months' time, what I would want is to hear and see people on social media say, I saw it on OtOh, or you should look this up on OtOh, because what we see now is if I say to someone, I saw it on CNN, they're either going to say CNN is a trusted source, or they're going to say CNN is fake news. There's nothing in between. And that's what we wanted to try to create, is that something in between, that both people on one side of an issue or the other would say, well, at least I can see both or all sides of a particular issue, and they're not biased. And that's what I would hope, is that over time, people would start to say, they just go right down the middle and don't pass judgment. They present all sides and let people make their own decisions, but they can't be tarred as being right or left, conservative or liberal. They just present everything and let people make their own decisions. That might be a little pie in the sky, but that's what we tried to do.
How did sites like Reddit and their comments section influence your decision making, if that was part of the equation? And I'll reference it by saying that usually in the comments for news items, that Reddit will provide supplemental material that other people will point to that either reinforces what's being posted, or basically kind of says, well, this isn't it because it's this. And then you have generally what you have in social media is people commenting about their personal perspectives on things. Did that example kind of go into the conversations you had about the product that you developed?
Yeah, actually, we discussed early on whether or not we were going to allow comments at all. And I think where we ended up, at least initially, is we were not going to allow comments, because we didn't want it to turn into that place where one side can dominate the conversation or the other. And then there was the issue of moderation. But we also, I think, kind of recognized at some point, unfortunately, in order to create engagement, we'd probably have to allow some type of commenting. But I think or at least for me, I felt like we can't solve the comment problem right now. Let's focus on the bigger issue, and down the road, that would be something. But it wasn't necessary. It wasn't crucial to the idea. So commenting is something for me that's like, just put it in a box and deal with it later. I don't know about everyone else.
For me, the comment section on social media platforms is the problem section. It is where all the conversation without nuance happens. It is where people just throw themselves at each other. Actually, the only platform where I'm not seeing this happen that much is like Reddit and LinkedIn, and LinkedIn is going in that direction as well. So indeed, like dealing with that right now was a bit too much. I actually could imagine something interesting like being implemented later on as not allowing any comments below, I don't know, 200 signs or something, that people actually have to like put in some elaborate thoughts and not just some swearing words, or I don't know. I mean, that could be misused as well. But I would say I think you have for what we said, we want the news articles to be curated and actually read. And I think it's just as important for a comment section to actually have someone, I don't want to say policing it, but like seeing if it's a polite conversation, if people respect each other, if people are putting thoughts out there, and maybe you can also ask questions and like have someone appoint someone who does that to the comment section. That could be interesting, similar to indeed what Reddit does. Like they add additional news, or like, did you consider this?
So if you were to avoid the same problem that you had uncovered with kind of being in your own echo chambers, how does this particular program, or this, sorry, program, but how does this particular service kind of reinforce critical thinking by not putting somebody in an echo chamber around what their interests are or just what they want to see?
Mm-hmm.
For me, I guess I'd go back again to curation. And that's something we earn over time from our readers, that they either trust us or they don't. And then transparency, showing everybody the data that we're collecting and what others are reflecting. So we're showing not just read times on page or whatever, how many times it's been shared, and then feedback for people who feel like their mind has been changed or not. For each article, you can see all of the data that is being collected. So that was something that came up early, is this concept for me anyhow of radical transparency. Because that's one of the things I think we need to fight against the most, is perceived bias behind the scenes, and you don't know who's pulling the strings for what you're seeing. So that was important to get that out there and say, this is your resource. It doesn't belong to someone else.
Did you see the concept of authenticity tied into the author or the story?
Story. When I curated, it's a tricky line, but I didn't feel like we could depend on individuals and their reputation and credibility for the site. It had to be something much more anonymous, but also trusted. And I don't quite know how we do that, but I think there is a way to capture that trust and authenticity without depending on personalities and their individual reputations.
Yeah, absolutely. There has to be we have to put some importance back on facts, and facts in general, not by who states them, but by like their content and what they're actually saying. I think that often too much importance is put on like who says something, and then what they're actually saying just doesn't get enough attention if someone else would have said it. So I would say definitely say story, yeah.
I think also in our conversations, we established that we weren't going to get everybody. we're not going to get people who just don't want to have their minds changed. We were trying to create something for people who recognize that there's bias everywhere, but recognize that there has to be some common truth and common shared set of facts, but don't know exactly which ones to trust. So on both sides of any issue, you're going to have hardcore people who just want to fight and just cannot admit they might be wrong. We'll get them maybe down the road, but for now we wanted to go for people who are on either side of a very broad middle.
Marie, how would you use this application if this was actually a viable source online that you could use? Marie, how would you use it? How would you approach it?
I don't know, Robert. I don't know. No.
Not sure? Okay, that's fine. So what dimension of this sprint did you like the most? I can guess is a good question to ask. Marie, I'll go back to you and said, like, what part of this overall sprint did you enjoy or learn from the most?
I enjoyed the beginning, where you have to define the challenge together, to use those boards to facilitate. They did a great job. We were together. It was great, and I also liked to maybe help with user testing by giving like a script, like how I do it as a UX expert, and yes, I had a question about that actually, Robert. Do you think it could be useful to guide a little bit more on user testing? How it should be done, actually?
To teach others how to do user testing?
Yes. Yes. Well, how should we do that to limit the biases?
Most of the teaching when it comes to user research involves nuances, like certain habits that you have when you have a conversation with someone about user research that you have to kind of encourage people to curb, such as thinking that you want them to succeed and trying to influence them, like this is the correct thing to click on, or this is the correct way to go. Because what you do when you do something like that, for example, is that you essentially communicate that there's a right way of going through the prototype which there shouldn't be. They should basically just experience the prototype. And then if they happen to go in the right direction, then great. But if they don't, that's valuable data to get from one individual around how they perceive not only your interface, but also what you're putting in front of them. The second thing is always to encourage someone to think out loud. And a lot of people don't do that necessarily. They'll just go, and they'll do this, but they won't say anything. So it's small little things that you can teach people about how to do proper user research. But the truth is, it's like anything else. It takes practice, takes repetition. It takes literally having conversations like this and showing how you can lead somebody with questions, but not give them the answers. You also had to identify personalities. There are some people that come to user interviews that just want to satisfy your need to do the interview. They are called apologists. They just suddenly go, oh, it's okay. I just really want to figure out what this is. They want to please you more than actually be tested. And then there's the complete opposite, where it's the stone, where someone will just be there in front of their monitor going like this. Yeah. No, they're like a frog, right? They don't move much. But both of those can be challenging in different ways. But the only way to understand how to navigate both of those personalities and to get the right data from the test is to go through that practice and then look back at what you did and how you approached it to say, okay, this is all right. I felt comfortable with this, but try this next time or try it something different. And usually that reinforcement after over time will increase the confidence of the person, but also remind them to like ask follow-up questions, to be able to flow in the script. So not just go from question 1, question 2, question 3. If you skip to question 4 right off the bat, that's okay. Then just circle around naturally in the conversation and ask question 2 when it seems appropriate. It just takes that kind of practice to really get down. So to answer your question, how you can teach people about how to do user research, the best way is to just start having conversations where one person is interviewing someone else about a topic that they like, just something. So
yes. I was thinking about the boards. They are very precise concerning the challenges and the ideation part. Should they be precise too on the testing part?
You definitely want to make sure.
Maybe with do's and don'ts, or I don't know. It's an idea.
You can put those there, but often when people first do this and have never done it before, they're not sure. So a lot of the instructional doesn't stick. They have to kind of, what's really good that I recommend is if you've never done user research, do it in pairs so that there's 2 people interviewing 2 people, so that on the other side, they probably know each other, if at all possible. If it's just one person, you can say, I'd like to introduce my assistant who's going to help with questions. And the idea is that you tag team. So if one person is kind of stuck on where to go, the other person probably is at bat, can help kind of assist. So usually if you're beginning, especially in a design sprint like this, the instruction is just to do individual one-on-ones. But if somebody is like really like, I don't know what to do, then pair up and do both, go at the same time, go both. Because then more often than not at the end, people will play off of each other during the interview and then have some side discussion at the end to get their impressions, to say, did you get that feeling that this person that got really confused in this part? And you go, yeah, I didn't like that. And that can help with documenting not only the reactions, but the post impressions that you may have of the experience someone has.
Okay. And you were talking about videos, about making videos to help. What about a video of a bad user testing and a good one, so that we can a little bit see what to do or not? It could be an idea.
You're putting a lot of work on my plate, Marie. I appreciate it, but yeah, but you're correct. That actually could help out a lot. Especially, I always point people to Michael Margolis's 5-step interview, and that's one example of somebody that does a very conversational interview tone. But since I have pretty extensive experience in user research, I'm probably doing people a disservice not to kind of walk through and say, okay, here's how you would conduct an interview in a virtual design sprint environment, to kind of go through a list of questions, to pick up on certain things, to ask follow-up questions, and be time aware in all of those tenets. So yeah, you're right. I should have something like that as well.
Oh, it's just an idea. I'm sorry, but I'm very focused on that because for me, it's the most important part of the design sprint. And if we don't do this part, great. We can fail on the other part. It's not a problem. But if we fail on user testing, I think we lose the value of the design sprint.
I 100% agree with you. Yes, I 100% agree. In fact, last year I was banging the drum that the facilitator and the researcher are nearly identical in terms of their importance, because you can have a brilliant facilitation and have a brilliant prototype, but if your user research in terms of like your interviews don't either follow a script or aren't done well, then you're going to get data that isn't as sound as it would be. So you may be misinterpreting how people react and how they take in your prototype. So yes, it's a science and an art, and it takes patience. But yes, I agree with you. It's something that's absolutely required. that you should have like that sound, so that the data that you consider at the end after 4 or 5 straight days of work culminates into something of an understanding of where you are, to the best of your understanding from people that look at it. So yay, user experience. So we're nearly at time. I wanted to give everyone a chance to say any last words about the project, about the sprint, about each other. I will remind everyone, all 3 of you, that if you haven't done so already, and you feel inclined to go on LinkedIn and recommend each other for the kind of work that you do. It does matter a lot in terms of longevity, and with people who don't know anything about what we're doing here, to take at face value what somebody says about a person's abilities and make that part of the discussion that they have, or whether to hire you or to talk to you or to even consider what you're all about. So yeah, please do that if you haven't done so already. But beyond that,
Yes,
does anyone have any like last words they like to say about the project, about the sprint, or anything that comes to mind?
I think we said it all. It was awesome. And I hope to see you in the next one, definitely.
Yeah, I'm proud to be an alpaca.
Yes, absolutely. An awesome alpaca.
Great.
Don't forget that one, eh?
Yeah. The good news is that we'll be doing a community of practice starting next month. So this isn't something you're obligated to do, but it'll keep you in touch with what the greater community is doing until we have something like a gathering like this again. But the one thing I'll add is that it's not just to basically practice some of these activities. For people that run small businesses, this is also an opportunity to do some prototyping, to do some testing that could have an ample community to basically say, are there any teachers here that could try out this idea? Like one thing I'm going to be doing is called either Miro Masters or Mural Masters. And the idea behind that is that literally you're having a bank of different people that know Miro very well, that can create boards, that would be willing to do so for a flat rate for some client that needs them within like a week or 2 weeks, whether they're design sprints, service design, or otherwise. And if you have experience doing that, for people that are in the top 10, best of the best, this is an outlet to basically showcase what they can do as part of that, because it's already been verified by somebody who did hire somebody from the Global Virtual Design Sprint to do some boards in Mural. So I might as well see if there's an extension of that to see where it goes. But that's what the community practice is. It's going to be kind of trying out tools, trying out different methods, but also on the business side, seeing what actually the market is looking for out of your services and what you're after, and seeing if there's other people in this community that would be willing to hop on and test it out for a month and see where it goes.
Sounds great. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Great.
All right, so I guess the last thing to do is to shut down the share real fast, and then we can do one last group shot between the 4 of us. As is the custom of previous ones, we'll have to do one that some sort of theme that goes along with everybody, though Minou is slightly in the dark, so we have to kind of do something that where either she comes straight really close to the camera, or anything you got that you're thinking about, we can do. Any ideas? You want to do a mug? I got a glass of water. You do it that way.
I'm getting there.
I don't have a glass.
You have something close to it. Minou, do you have anything to drink or no?
No, I have to go with this because you can't see anything else, but I'll just put an alpaca there.
There you go.
There you go. All right, we'll toast to the alpaca, right? Anyway, let me get these all set up and close this. All right. Are you ready?
Yes.
Yep.
1, 2, 3. All right. Cool.
So funny.
How did you have that on your phone? Do you carry that around on your phone all the time?
I just Googled it and it's adorable. It's so fluffy. Okay.
Thank
cool.
you very much all for doing
Thanks,
this
Robert.
for the GVDS. I hope it was a great time, and I'm sure we're going to talk again in the months to come. So, enjoy your weekend, and thanks a lot for all the work you did. And for those of you who are on YouTube and watching this later on or right now, thanks for tuning in. And for everyone else, see you later. Talk to you later. Adios.
Thank you.
Bye.